for the agenda.
Good. Okay, afternoon, everybody. I will call to order regular council meeting number 1581 for Tuesday, May 9th. And in honor of the Lewa Tool of the Village of Pemberton acknowledges our meeting here today within the unceded territory of the Lewa Nation. I don't need to go on that. Can I get a motion to go into the camera, please? Councillor Helmer, second by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries.
It's a lot there.
So no recording.
Yeah, just let's see if we have any attendees. We're good. I think we're good.
Everybody's in? All right, and I will call back to order. Regular council meeting for May 9th. And again, I'd like to honor the Lewa Tool and acknowledging that the Village of Pemberton meets within the unceded territory of the Lewa Nation. For those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Are there any amendments to the agenda? None move is presented.
Yes, there is an amendment. On the original package, it showed the business arising. It's just been moved around.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll do adoption of the agenda, and then after approval of the minutes, we'll do the business arising. Is that the way it was before?
Yes.
Sorry, my mistake. Ignore that.
Yeah.
Not as amended.
Motion to ignore.
Sorry.
Okay. Who is presented? So Nightingale, second by Councillor Helmer. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have rise with report from the camera meeting number 1580 from April 25th. And that is the village is pleased to announce that Councillor Katrina Nightingale, Alan McEwen, and Ula Clark have been confirmed as the village's representatives on the Shvelkuntum Community Forest Board. And we'd also, coming out of that meeting, is that the village is also pleased to advise that the Village of Pemberton and Lewa Nation Water Agreement has been extended for a further 5 years. Through this agreement, water service is supplied to the industrial park. Approval of the minutes from Council 1580, and by Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Ramsden. Discussion opposed. Carries. So we're on 8.1. And this is administrator to explain.
So when we did the committee of the whole meeting on April 18th, council, the committee made a recommendation to council around the capital and sewer reserves. Unfortunately, the language was not captured correctly. We did, however, the committee did, however, adopt those minutes on April 25th. And they also rose with report to the regular meeting, and council passed the resolution as it stated, which that staff be directed to increase the sewer and capital reserves to each reflect 240,000 in the 2023 budget, which is not, there was a lot of different conversations going on, so we just didn't capture it properly. What the resolution should have said is that staff be directed to increase the sewer reserves by an additional 40,000 for 2023. So what we're asking, seeking council's agreement to do is rescind the resolution that was passed on April 25th, and then do the resolution that with the proper wording.
Questions? Here's mine.
If I may, I think it's important to know that this correction reflects exactly what the financials were at that time. So, yeah, and still are.
So would somebody like to move that we rescind the resolution from April 25th? By Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Helmer. And sorry, as well, and that staff be directed to increase the sewer and capital reserves to each reflect 240,000.
That's what that's the resolution that you are rescinding.
Okay, any discussion, any opposed? Carries. New recommendation for consideration is that staff be directed to increase the sewer reserves by an additional $40,000. By Councillor Helmer, seconded by Councillor Nightingale. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baylor. Nothing coming out of the cow. Takes us all the way down to 12.1, Office of the CAO Projects Priority Update. CEO Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I first want to begin by recognizing the excellent work that went into the emergency preparedness stage that occurred on Saturday at the barn. For anyone who was able to attend, it was an excellent assembly of some really important emergency mitigation teams and educators within the community. I just want to give a shout out to fire who had all of their equipment there. The kids were super excited to touch and tour the trucks and the trailers. We had folks from SAR that were there who were teaching people about rescue. We had Bylaw there who was talking about animal control, and the turnout was excellent. I don't know exactly how many people attended, but there was a steady flow of people through the barn all day. Maybe due to somewhat inclement weather, everybody was looking for something to do, but it certainly got a lot of attention. So.
Yeah, I was there and I thought it was great. And I thought the turnout was awesome. Really.
And the barbecue was really not to be missed. The next thing that I would like to share with Council, if I may, is an update on the 2023 project priorities. So I had made a commitment to Council a while back in going through our priority planning that I would bring this back periodically to give you a little bit of a walkthrough. We have our board here in Council chambers, but I think this is going to give you a better live idea of how things are going and how we're using these tools. I'm going to share a slideshow with you here. It's not going to show me my notes. Yeah, that's okay. I may just run through this in the more raw form if you don't mind. It's not going to look quite as pretty, but that way I have my speaking notes for you. So as Council may recall, we did a prioritization exercise back in December of 2022. And here are some highlights related to the work that we've done thus far. In this short presentation that I'm doing for you, I'll talk about how we got where we are today with this, how we're using these tools that we implemented at that time or been working towards implementing, where we are now with this, and how we're going to approach this going forward. So as I did mention, we did the work with Gord McIntosh back in December of 2022 to look at the collective projects across the organization. And through that process, we materialized 700 existing and potential projects that would constitute about 10% of our work as staff. We really appreciated that time in coming together, the collaborative approach and how it built us together as council and staff as a team. And that's something that we want to continue going forward. We also felt that having this sort of periodic reporting builds a level of trust, supports transparency in the organization for council, as well as the public with regards to the priorities and their progression. Additionally, this serves as a tool for gauging our capacity, demonstrating the complexity of some of the projects we have, that they aren't just the names of the projects, but there are many pieces and parts that make up the components of those projects, and creating a framework for decision making. In essence, this is a simple communication tool that is intended to highlight what is important to you all as council in terms of your projects, what we are focusing on through our operational priorities, as staff, what those projects are comprised of and what the status is and what's coming next. So I need to give credit where credit is due today. So this is a byproduct of work that was picked up by Mr. Scott McCraig, our manager of development services, who initially took the template from the work with Gord and put it into his quarterly reporting. And so when he did that, we talked to him a little bit more about what sort of opportunities there were to evolve this. And he created a nice presentation for the CAO's team and talked us through some ways that we could use this as a communication tool with you all. So how will we use this? This should include projects, so that priorities, that highlights capital projects, which are the things that you can kick. Important activities, significant changes to processes or services, which I would also classify as small P projects. And the initiatives of council. An example of that would be the advocacy pieces. So where are we now? I am really pleased to say that we have started to incorporate this into our general, or this framework into our general quarterly reporting. So you may have noticed that we've attempted to normalize the practice of putting these priority charts within the bodies of those quarterly reports. And that started with more wholly in this quarter. And what you're seeing right now is from the report that Mr. Chima will be doing a little bit later. The goal in doing this is to create consistency across each one of the departments or areas of the organization in the way we report going forward. It's also intended to simplify. You'll see highlighted the name of the project, followed by a significant milestone and the anticipated date of delivery. And then behind the scenes, the CAO's team will continue to update these on a regular basis to be presented quarterly. I will say that there is a disclaimer on this, though. Should you want to see this more frequently, maybe on a monthly basis, this is something that we can do because it's really important that we keep this alive and active and increase your awareness as to what the status are of these projects. So our approach going forward, outside of including the tables within our quarterly reporting, I just want to acknowledge that this is not a perfect system, and that's why you have a square peg going in the round hole here. It does not necessarily work for every single department, but we'll do our best to try to make this fit because, again, it is consistent and simple. We do need to maintain some flexibility, as I would always suggest with everything that we do, that we take an iterative approach to doing this and we'd be willing to change things if it's not working. If we find the tools ineffective, then maybe we need to be doing things differently. There will be some activities that won't show up on the list. And sometimes there will be projects that need to advance sooner than others. Certainly, you know, there are moments where we have conversations in this room that guide the projects that we're doing. And there are things that, you know, one project may move another project out of the way, or one may have a greater sense of urgency than another. Further to our strategic planning, priority setting will become part of the preparation for the budget year over year. So we'll do our strategic planning in June, and then we'll come back in the fall and we will do our project planning, which will correspond to the 2024 budget process and each budget process after that. Our mission and aspirational pillars will be the backbone to the project planning that will occur in the fall, which will form the following year's budget. So to give you an idea, this is where we started with the council priorities back in the December session. I know you had the opportunities to see these on the board here in chambers, but I wanted to just give you a little bit more dynamic picture of this. So as an example, the daycare expansion. We have gotten through the milestone of determining the scope with you all and what the direction was going to be. And so how that translates, that was the discussions around what type of building this was actually going to be, what kind of foundation it would have, what kind of roof it would have. And from there, then we were able to move on to the next milestone. Within the context of the OCP work, we had the kitchen table discussion, the school engagement, the open house, all of these things that were launched from an engagement end back in January. And then from a compensation study perspective, we worked with a consultant to follow up with HR and finance to materialize the results for you all. Wildfire resiliency, we were at the time preparing a presentation for council for committee of the whole, which was then delivered in February. And then finally, the last project that was on there was the water systems upgrade, which to our understanding was desire to have some of the assessment materials brought back to new council to give them some perspective on where we are with our water systems. We are preparing an overview of the assessment accompanied by the annual water report that we hope to be provided in May. That's if a new CHIMA does not come early. Advancing to the next steps and current status of these priorities. Again, we have the daycare continuing and the next milestone being an agreement. This is something that we're working on, but we are going to have questions that we will bring back to you all as to some of the decisions around the long-term care and keeping of that facility, and, you know, looking at that through the lens of finances and budget to determine how we are going to move forward with that aspect of this work. The OCP update, determining next steps on the engagement, anticipating collaborative work with LEWAT, and an update to the protocol agreement is anticipated. Compensation study. This has now been built into the 2023 budget, so you'll see that that one is green. Wildfire resiliency, we now have a path forward. The presentation was delivered, and so you see the project is actually now red. Next time we'll probably take that off, and one of the next items will be moved up. Water systems upgrade, again, we will be providing that presentation, or we hope to, at the end of May. On our next list was asset management. In some cases, we have examples here of projects that had been going on simultaneous to the more immediate projects, or maybe had been advanced through other processes. So we had a presentation back in January from New York City as part of the initial budget process. And then from here, future steps will be developed that will support policy and budget practices around reserves. So that will probably be the next milestone that we will see at some point with asset management. Fire meeting hall potential. We're working with the consultant to finalize the presentation of several concepts that we intend to come in the May meeting. Strategic plan. We planned how we would plan, basically the structure of the planning, and that will be rolled out in June 27th to be precise. Daycare construction. The site has now been cleared and the preload is in place, but if we would look back on that process, we would have seen a time where it was on hold because we had decisions to make around the daycare. So I think that the on hold piece is a really important component for us to capture going forward, because then it starts to create more transparency and explanation around sometimes why things have, a propensity to get stuck. Not always, but it happens. Retention and recruitment. The draft strategy has been shared with the CAO's team, but a larger piece of work with regards to my evaluation has sidelined that for a little bit until we get through that piece. So for the moment, the retention and recruitment draft strategy is on hold, but that has been presented to the CAO's team just for a trial to better understand what a framework could be. And finally, we have the advocacy pieces, which have been very important throughout the last few months. Certainly, the daycare financial support was a significant one. We were able to receive the gap funding that will allow us to move forward. Regional transit, most of this activity we saw back in the fall of last year, but there will probably be other components of this that materialize over time. I would say to this end, though, that one way we are improving this at our end of the corridor is to implement the deadheading, which will add additional capacity to the buses. Flood mitigation, we had the meetings with provincial officials back in January, and I think that sits with them as well as the PBD for now. But as part of our advocacy piece, it was really the work with the mayor at UBCM that helped to bring those individuals to the table. 1 Mile Lake, I think we're in agreement through the budget process. This is not a 2023 initiative, but that we can take a repair approach for this for now and watch for grant opportunities in the future. And then with regards to reconciliation, also known on this list as First Nations liaison, we have the upcoming Realizing UNDRIP workshop on June 13th, which will help to lay a foundation for future reconciliation work that we do as the village. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to share this with you, and I welcome any thoughts and questions.
Thank you. Awesome. Lots of questions. No one? I think that's super clear, and I think that's a really great way, you know. First, I'm listening, watching. That's a lot of work to present what's going on. But then as I see it as an ongoing tool, I can see it being helpful here, being helpful to anybody watching and allowing us to pass on information. I think that's great. That's really good. Thank you. Really fair. Awesome. Okay, well, if there's no questions, can I get a motion to receive, please? Scott, second by Councillor Helmer, any opposed? Motion carries. Awesome. 12.2. Legislative services about UBCM ministry meetings. Ms. Fraser.
I am going to have Oliver to present.
All right. Thank you for my first report. As you guys may or may not be aware, UBCM 5.3 is coming up and staff are already on their way to try to get everything prepared for you guys to be well prepared for your guys' meetings with ministers. So UBCM is a great opportunity for elected councillors to meet with provincial ministries, agencies, commissions, and corporations. Staff are preparing to create the briefs to ministers, corporations, as mentioned before. With a very limited character cap, we have 700 words to write 700 letters, spaces, to actually write what we're asking from ministries, corporations, all that. So today we are asking for council to provide who they would like to meet with, what ministers they would like to meet with, and a specific ask that they want to ask these ministries. We are also looking to see kind of who's actually interested in attending these meetings, just so we can get underway with the work needed. Staff are speculating that a lot of these deadlines will be around mid-June, so we want to get the work done well in advance.
Thank you. Any questions before we get in? You good to close this?
What would the date to get it to the number 18th, which comes back on 18th. Okay.
So anybody have any suggestions for ministers' meetings or thoughts? If you'd like to share, go ahead.
Well, I understand that we've previously spoken with them about it, but I just the one regarding the farm status exemption. I mean, I just think with all the conversations that are going around affordable housing, et cetera, I don't know, it seems like we might be moving into an area where we might get some traction with that. I don't know if previously it didn't sound like there was necessarily that much traction. So I know we try not, it sounds like, you know, we try not to repeat, but I just wonder if that might be time to bring that up again.
Just to provide some context around that, request that happened, was related to a boundary extension that the village was looking at doing, in which we would see the Pemberton North Water System area, Collins Road, Overston, all of that area, and then areas out between the plateau and the industrial park brought into the village boundaries. And one of the issues and concerns for those folks was around losing their farm tax exemption, because when properties come into municipality, that's exemption doesn't apply. So that was in just to provide some context, so that was related to an initiative council had at that time, which was around boundary extension to broaden our boundaries to include areas that we already service through varying things. And that was one way to try to hopefully bring that part of the community more interested to come into our boundary. However, boundary extension was not pursued due to the lack of interest on the part of people in that area and the cost to repair the roads. Just in terms of context, we have not very much farmland in our boundary at this point.
Yeah, and what I was thinking there is I understand that that's not something that we're necessarily actively pursuing, but it strikes me as that the groundwork for that type of change may take some time. And then the other thing I was thinking is it sounds like the BC government, with looking at their housing strategy, is taking a look at their property tax scheme and some of their taxation schemes. So it's just that they're doing that work, and it may not be a priority for us now or something that we're thinking about, but to lay the groundwork for in the future, because to my understanding, when I based on the information I've previously heard about that, is that there was potentially some benefits to the municipality to pursue that. And so it may not be now, but in the future. So I was just thinking, since there is this potentially, it sounds like there's this larger discussion in the background about taxation schemes, that it might be worth putting a plug in there. Because if they're revisiting that, I don't know.
I wonder, I mean, it was interesting when we brought it to the minister back in 2016, that the response was something along the lines of, oh, I didn't know that. Basically, and so it would be interesting to have a follow-up on it. I respect a lot of your intentions there. I wonder if we would like to follow. I don't know if we want to call a meeting for it, or if we would like to follow up and see if it's on the table and if it's being considered by the province, because it is ridiculous that farms within municipal boundaries don't get farm exemption, farm tax exemption. It's crazy. We don't have much of that within our boundaries. I don't know if it's our fight to fight at this point, but it could be of use, could be an impact to us down the road. So how do you feel about maybe inquiring, at some point, or finding a way to inquire with a letter? I don't know how, to see if there's been progress or further conversation on that.
Yeah, and I actually realized just with your comment, I'm very open to anything I say today along these lines. If this is the first time through the process, so if there are more appropriate measures to do that, then yeah, it sounds like maybe that's we don't want to address this issue or this topic this way, then it's, yeah.
Well, part of the interesting part of it is that when you do minister meetings, generally you're bringing something that's really pertinent to you right now. It could be higher level policy. So last year we went and said, we went and had a ministers meeting about the cost of policing to small community.
Yeah.
We made a resolution on that. So some stuff that's very broad and general, you want to sort of work through the resolution system. If it's got a really direct impact, as this topic did when we were looking at boundary extension, that's when you kind of go more after the ministers specifically for your community. I would say, like, if it's a general thing, again, you pass it through the resolution process. Yeah, that would be my comments. I'm open and just. That's good.
Yeah, transit is always on our agenda, so I want to continue with that.
So if I may, I was obviously, well, not obviously, I had not transit on my mind as well. I have a couple of issues that I think might be better brought up to the regional district, and maybe we do it in a partnership meeting or as represented through the region. But transit, I have a regional district meeting in 2 weeks, so I was going to propose regional transit as on a couple of levels. Number one, our own model of regional transit. Number two, the fact that the province hasn't increased their share to regional transit, or their budget basically hasn't increased, especially in alignment with their housing goals. So I wanted to sort of tap on that. I was thinking that would go through regional district, but I'm happy to have them.
Well, I think the last time we approached it was as a try.
Yeah,
Formation with ourselves, so.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that's concentrated either through the regional district or through ourselves, so Jeff doesn't get lost.
And the other one along that lines is around some of the diking work that, or not diking, some of the flood mitigation work that we're looking at through the Pembroke Valley Emergency Management Committee. I sent an email. We had a PDMC meeting on Monday, and I sent an email to Kevin Clark and some of the members to say, hey, if there's some advocacy through ministers' meetings in UBCM you'd like us to bring, let us know. So
That's super. And the other thing, and I'm not sure if meeting with the ministers is right time to bring it, but I'd like to see about funding for a potential fire hall in the future.
checked. Totally agree. I think it's important that we set even though we don't have a project right here, right now, I think it's important that we set the table for more conversations, let them know the support that we're going to need, why our fire hall is so badly outdated, why we so badly need another one, and the fact that we don't have land and we'll need support. So yeah. I don't, is that, who is that
We'll
with?
have to do, it probably crosses the divide, so we'll figure out who our minister or ministers this would apply to and put that on the ask, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm sure this is already on as a bigger piece, but the policing costs, hitting that threshold. And then another one being, how do we articulate our land poor situation tying into affordable housing provisions? And, how do we kind of navigate that piece? And then the last one that I don't see that we've gone in front around this, but really is the associated provincial responsibilities around increased population, like healthcare.
Yeah.
And you've got it, I guess.
Well, that's what you could finish it off. Go ahead.
But the system that is built in Pemberton and other small communities is not designed to meet the levels of population growth that we're experiencing. I think we're hearing it daily. And it's a much bigger issue, I know, than just us, but I do think we're going to have to start talking about it.
Understood. Totally agree. I think that bringing the fact, some of the things we've talked about at this table recently, the fact that our clinic was built with a population of 250 back in the 70s and it's still the same. And this is our current reality, and we need some support on getting
Especially when there's a lot of push around seniors housing, and
Yeah.
it's a user of healthcare that we need to be able to provide that resource. Otherwise, we're setting up a housing situation that doesn't have any infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. So Ministry of Health, I guess, to discuss the necessity of our expansion of our clinic and services. Did I feel like I missed the first one? Policing. So how do you want to approach policing? We did have a meeting on it last year. I'm not sure if they give us audience
I
again.
see that. I feel like it's a big UBCM issue anyway.
It is, and I'm happy to keep finding avenues. I don't, you can always ask. I don't know if they grant that one though.
Yeah,
Well, it was approved at UBCM last year.
Yeah.
So I don't think,
yeah, it just feels like
but
it's
it's
an important
a
one.
topic for sure.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, it's
I
moving
think
its
it's sort
way
of
through, we need
So it's already there.
Yeah.
So far we've got whoever the ministry is with regards to the need for support on the construction of a fire hall to meet our growing community. Ministry of Health for expansion of our clinic to meet our growing community. This one, go ahead.
But, and so I don't know if this is appropriate for here, and it's an issue that I don't think is to a bunch of it, but just, again, because it's just been mentioned briefly, but when we're talking about affordable housing, what seems to have become clear to me, or my growing understanding, is that municipalities really have limited tools in what we can use, particularly for us, where we're land poor. So having a conversation or just reiterating that, having the province revisit their property transfer tax scheme as well as their property tax and property class schemes to provide municipalities with more tools in order to be able to tackle the affordability issue. And so I don't know, again, if it's quite broad. I could see it being very useful for us, but it would be a number of other municipalities. I don't believe I've seen anything that broad level through. Yeah.
That would be more of a resolution, I would
Okay.
think, but that's okay. That doesn't, we can look at that because I like what you're thinking, but I'm just trying to find the right place for it.
Yeah.
As you're probably aware, the province is doing a lot of work right now on affordable housing, and new legislation is going to come forward. So this might be something that, and I'm sure that at the UBCM they'll roll out some of what they're looking to do, because the intention is to bring forward the legislation in November. So there may be a lot of information that comes out through that process. So I don't know if it's something to wait, if it's one of those things you wait and see what the province is going to do and see where they're going to release some of the, or provide more tools for the municipalities to use through that legislation, or if you move ahead of it. But it's one of those, because it's hard to know what they're working on right now.
Yeah, I'd like to see, if we can, have the Minister of Environment at the conversation, or with the Minister of Transit, because I think the two go together. The province has very, very significant GHG reduction targets, and we're not going to meet those targets if we don't change the way we get out of our cars. And so I do think the two go together. So I don't know if they ever do have two ministers together, but are we allowed to even ask?
You can't, we won't get it because what they do is they're all in different boardrooms and they all have 15-minute speed dating one after another. So they never combine them in. But we can have a same meeting with both ministries or like take the same topic, but a little bit of the different angle with both ministries, but we're not going to get them in the same room at the same time.
So I would like to see that that conversation with the Minister of Environment as well, because it feels a little bit like the transit issue. It's very slow moving, which I appreciate why, but the same conversation can be had with the Minister of Environment about why it's so important.
What's the ask?
Is the same one around improving regional transit in this area to shift beyond the car and to meet our climate targets, not only provincially, but as a community through our community climate action fund.
Should I take that to the regional district and?
Sure, I think it's, yeah, if we can do it with them, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I agree with you, and we run into this a lot where some of these conversations are quite blatantly cross ministry.
Mhm.
And so you gotta try to tackle wherever you can, and we don't often get them in the same room at the same time. But I've got ministers, for when I'm at the regional district table, with regards to transit, I've got the funding for new transit, how that ties into housing. So again, cross ministry as far as I'm concerned, I was in transit. And then the Ministry of Environment, in terms of how this ties into their mandate. Or GHG. I don't know what, I think it's more, and we've done this before where we've asked, like, it's not a specific ask from the Ministry of Environment, except for the fact, and again, we've done this before, we're saying to them, hey, we need you to help advocate with your counterpart or your colleagues, fellow ministers at these, at these other ministries. So, okay, I'll bring that to this. Anything else?
Just where did we land on the farm? That's what you said.
I don't think we did land,
Oh, we didn't, okay.
so I'm happy.
Okay, that's
What-
good.
Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, is there anything wrong with? I mean, this was from 2018, so some time ago, right, that we brought this forward. I think, you know, Councillor Ramsden makes a great point around sort of setting the scene, and it's a strange inequity.
And so you like.
I mean, I would-
Meeting,
It would change very much from what we brought forward in 2018.
yeah, you're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But, we can give it a try. I certainly don't mind trying. I think it is a relevant issue.
Yeah.
Might be a better issue to address if those farms are actually doing something with their land besides letting it go to dead grass, but
Who's doing that?
all the ones that are in the community, nobody's growing food on.
In the village?
Mhm.
Well, some of them have meat grazing on them.
Anyway, that's the,
Yeah.
I'm happy to put in a request.
Okay.
If that's the will, yeah. So let's put in a request for that. Go ahead.
Again, not sure if this is appropriate for these ones, but it just occurred to me, in terms of an acute specific issue is, so the Sandy dump here, you know, there's the potential that at one point in the future, we may lose it. And my understanding is the closest one is down in Function Junction, and then the next one might be somewhere in Willowitt. And I know around the table and is that there's concerns about, again, impacts of ecotourism and you know, I think I heard anecdotally some people talking about people just basically dumping up on the Duffy. And so I don't know if that is something to bring up with I don't know if it's Ministry of Environment or Parks and just saying, you know, this is a critical issue to the region, and you know, would they consider funding or you know, considering that they're going to lose that, and that's got an impact. I don't know.
It's in our portal plan. For the new hub.
Oh, is it?
It's not, I mean, we might have to get, it's gonna have to get moved.
Yeah.
That's one of the considerations, maybe going to the transit hub, but that hasn't been decided, so. The specific ask, so what do you want to ask?
I don't know if we want to ask for funding or for some, but just, I
So
guess.
we kind of fund locally through, it's a bit of a service that you provide locally. I don't think maybe we can look, I don't know if that they fund sandy dumps and, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's just because there seems to be an evolving conversation that people accessing the outdoors is fantastic. We want to encourage it, but we want to encourage it in a responsible way. And I mean, MLA Sturdy had that stat that I heard he wants to pull out about all the, you know, untreated sewage that people are leaving in the backcountry. And so I would just think is that, you know, moving that conversation along to say the province, you know, again, and I see that there was previously discussions about saying, okay, do you guys have a regional level plan for managing ecotourism in this area? And I would think that that's the key part. And yes, maybe there's not funding out there, but planting the bug maybe, or some assistance with that. Because I mean, the other issue is what happens if we can't, if we aren't able to manage it locally, or, you know, it doesn't fit within the plan. Then I again, it may not fall within our boundaries, but I would imagine it's going to start impacting the surrounding area. So I don't know.
I hear your thoughts on managing human waste and activities as backcountry, you know, tourism explodes. I hear it. I'm just trying to put this in the context of me sitting in front of the minister for 15 minutes and making a really concise pitch as to what we're looking for. I'm not sure where I'm going with that, and that's I understand you're feeling around. And here's a bit of when we talked about this. You know, we are going to save room in the next meeting. We don't have to decide now. The idea is to get hopefully most, if not all, of the ideas on the table for staff to either look at for us or help prepare briefs. But there is a little room in the next meeting to come back and make an addition or two if we feel something dawns on us on the drive home tonight, or whatever it is, you know, or if that formulates a little bit more for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the key to it though, for all of us is to try to again, when we go in there, when we leave, what is that specific ask? When I boil it down, and it's not even 15 minutes, because there's introductions, there's goodbyes, there's niceties, which I tend to cut pretty quick. But you know, you get 10 minutes really, and you want to leave time for their comments. So you really got to boil it down to an ask. And in my experience, one of the best asks or results can be a follow-up meeting. That's sometimes the best we could do, is like, I want to, you know, our ask is getting the right people in the right room to have a follow-up conversation, which is exactly what happened with the flooding mitigation meetings last year. Is it resulted in several follow-up meetings. So maybe sit on it, Councillor Ramsden, and then if you could refine that a little bit into more of a direct, what we're going in to ask for specifically. We've been into the minister and made resolutions about more boots on the ground to manage tourism, more toilet facilities. Tourism Pemberton's been successful in putting in some outdoor outhouses, as we know. So some ground has been made. If you look through our resolutions, some of our meetings or some of our first asks were meeting with Tourism BC and saying, we would like you, here's our proposal, and we put it in a resolution as well. Our proposal is that you invest as much in managing your parks as you do in terms of marketing them, you know, equal budget. So, you know, all those, so we have tried a number of different ways, and I'm open to try more, but I'm just suggesting we need to be quite specific and targeted when we go in there. So see, it's good intentions, keep maybe processing it for the next meeting if you like. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Point of clarity?
Yeah, just if I could remind council, we have very little space to prepare that ask, so there's not any opportunity to provide
Yeah.
sort of a litany of background. We're used to be one page and you could provide a bit more context. It's really hard to provide context, background, and the ask in 700 characters.
Yeah.
So again, it's
It limits the broad conversation.
yes, it does.
And allows, but you know, on the other hand, you know, an example would be the fire, you know, in that the current fire hall in Pemberton is outdated, undersized, We need to meet disaster proof, and the community is the fastest growing community in the world. We need support on, you know, we could boil that down to a targeted ask.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Question will answer. Thank you.
Any additional, we covered everything? Again, I'll be bringing a few things down for MOTI, MOE, and other ministries for flood mitigation to the regional district. Okay, so motion to have staff.
Explore,
Go ahead.
does that work?
I make
More meetings with Minister of Finance, perhaps on the farm tax. We'll find out which minister for the funding for the fire hall and the Ministry of Health discuss staff health services. Does that work?
Did we get Minister of Environment?
No, Ministry of Environment.
It was in there. Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah.
We could put a list of what the mayor will take to the Rubin district.
Not included for the record.
Yeah, and then the following items be brought forward to the regional district for consideration for minister meetings, regional transit, diking and flood mitigation.
Regional transit and transit funding, provincial transit funding.
Provincial transit funding. Diking and flood mitigation was one I got.
Yeah, and that's going to cross a bunch of ministries as well.
Okay, where's my other RD? Ministry of Environment on GHGs and transit interaction.
Okay, moved by Councilor Hammer, second by Councilor Nightingale. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Carries. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Fraser.
Mayor, we have one other request just to get from council who will be planning to attend UBCM. I know it's many months away and but it will be helpful when we get the information to at least be able to narrow it down. So the conference is 18th, 22nd, and you're usually there for the whole week. It's in Vancouver this year. So we will often get the message out that the hotel rooms are now open for booking. So if we have an idea of how many people are planning to go, then we can at least make those bookings as soon as and get the good conference rate.
My question is it from a cost point of view? Because it's a costly week, I'm guessing if we all go, is it standard procedure that most people go, or can it's budgeted? Okay.
And I think, and I appreciate your budget concerns, but if you want to go, I think it's good value for
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah, share the room.
Happy meals.
As long as it's open.
Someone's got too comfortable. Okay, good.
We have all that. Planning to attend. Okay, perfect. That's great.
I might ask, or is our CAO gonna come? Good. Good. You didn't put your hand up and I was wondering, are you going?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, now we're on to 12.2B, which is the Community Enhancement Fund with regards to the New One Nation rodeo.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. So we received a request from Little Nation with no specific money amount for support for the annual Little Nation rodeo. This is something that the Mayor and Council has typically supported through the Community Enhancement Fund. We provided a report for council just to inform them of how much has been spent. We've had some $500 in the Community Enhancement Fund, and to this date, we have 2,000 remaining that is not allocated. So we just want to make sure that that is in your head before confirming an amount that you want to give to the Little One Nation for the rodeo.
So you could support in two ways. What we have done is supported through a prize for one of the events. That's how we supported last year. Council supported the Kiwi Barrel Racing, which seems to be the one that we have supported in the past, but we sponsored both days. Or you could choose to just make a donation to the operational side of the event, because they obviously are also seeking funds for just all the administration and the logistics of the operations of the rodeo itself. So those are the options.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we put $500 towards the Kiwi
Barrel Racing.
Beer racing, that's what it was, yes, thank you.
Second by Councilor Hummer.
Yep.
Further discussion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good job, sir. You're broken and officially broken. We are on to all the way to 12.5 operations. Mr. Chino will be reporting on first quarter. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor.
So stated, I'm here to present the first quarter report that's from January till March. Apologies, I missed the last council meeting. I had some other commitments. So yeah, as usual, our quarterly reports are to provide council with a bit of a picture of what's been going on. As mentioned by Ms. Tracy, we did adopt the new progress priority low alert. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I always start with a bit of a discussion on some notable things that happened in that quarter. Believe it or not, that most recent quarter was mostly winter snow clearing and ice removal. It doesn't feel like that given the weather we've had lately, but yeah, that took up a big portion of it, as well as the regular spring cleanup, cleaning up gravel from the parks and the roads and the sidewalks, servicing equipment, fixing potholes, etc. I thought I'd just note that in February this year, so in the first quarter, we completed our third, I guess, section of the wastewater treatment plant receiving environment monitoring program. I'll just remind council that this was a new Ministry of Environment requirement to not only monitor the effluent from the plant, which we do regularly, but to do a receiving environment monitoring program, which basically means taking samples from the river, which we're discharging into. Now, based on the volume of the Willow River, which is where we discharge, and the very good results in our effluent, it's actually been sort of identified and suggested that this is excessive. The requirement to do this every year requires getting a boat 5 times a year, taking multitude of samples and sending to the lab. So we are going to be, as per the recommendation of our consultants, we're going to be making an application to the Ministry of Environment to reduce that requirement, so that we have to do it once every 5 years or something like that. The results that we've had over this past 3 years have shown that there's little to no effect. In fact, they found that upstream of the outfall, there's been higher levels of some of the parameters that they're changing. So just as a control measure, we do that, and yeah, there's virtually no effect. Basically, just for your information, it's to make sure that there's not like accumulation of any toxins or pollutants or anything like that. But this applies across the board, any plant that's discharging. So our plant, comparatively to the environment, it's highly unlikely to cause anything. Yeah, so I just thought I'd mention that. Also, we had a couple water main breaks. I guess one major water main break on Astor Street supply line. So that's the line from the well pumping up to the reservoirs. Luckily, in this event, it didn't cause any disruption to businesses. It sort of happened in the evening around this time, actually. And what that means is the distribution system wasn't affected because the reservoir was still full of water. Had we not made the repair in the 12-hour window or whatever that we had, that might have impacted users, but we might have still made the repair. Yeah, lastly, I'm not sure if council is aware, but our assistant manager of operations left the village to join the Willow Regional District. So some of the end of the first quarter went into recruitment efforts, which we are hoping to fill the position in the second quarter, which I can happily say that we have done. So that's great news. Yeah, so moving on to the operational priorities and projects. This is a condensed list from previous reports, because I think previously I was asked to list all the projects that we do, but focusing on the now and the next and the later on page 38 there. So yeah, the Carmen Farm Road East Trail and Road. We are awaiting a grant decision on the trail portion of that. The road is going to be done by the developers as part of their covenanted obligations, but we're hoping to coordinate those works together. So we're very hopeful to find out about this grant this month, but that would be work probably starting around July to do that work. So to continue to work on that project. EV chargers. So we've received the completed BC Hydro design. That was again for May. So we're working on, again, the plan for construction of that was June. I should be sticking to the now. I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. Next is the amenity building. That's at the Dendorf Park Recreation Facilities. So we did issue the architectural design RFP in March, and we're planning to select a proponent. I think it's this week, actually. So yeah, that's the now. Those 3 projects are pretty major. So you'll see them repeat in the next as well. There's some other milestones. For the Farm Road East, we are hoping as soon as we get that grant decision to tender the civil work and then complete the construction in July, like I mentioned. EV chargers as well, once we finalize the design, would be completing installation. So in the later list, we have the amenity building again. Once we have the designer contract awarded, we will complete the design and then complete construction. Another project on there, the reason this is lower down, lot 13 multimodal transportation hub. We are still working on the preliminary design, but there's been, I think it was mentioned even earlier, the potential for some pretty major design changes to this. So I put that one sort of on hold. It also will depend on the neighboring French school project that we're hoping to possibly negotiate a shared access, as well as BC Hydro's formal approval. So the next milestone that I have on here is the submission to BC Hydro for referral. and that's underway now. Amenity building completes the works and servicing. Signal Hill Elementary School sidewalk, that's the design and construction of the sidewalk in front of Signal Hill. Dundalk Park irrigation pond pumping station design. So now we're starting to move into some that don't actually have set timelines, deadlines, because they're in the later, but that's just a priority that we have, hoping to reduce the impact on our water system, irrigating all those nice new fields that we have. Fernwood pressure reducing valve. Couple notes on there, Walnut lift station upgrade, water treatment plant, and 1 Mile Lake boardwalk replacement. Just wanted to mention that one because I know it was mentioned earlier that we're assuming that project is not going ahead this year. We did submit the application for the Ministry of Department of Fisheries for work within a stream, because that can technically be fish habitat that we're disturbing. So that process, it's been almost 2 years now, and we just received note back that they will require a tenure application. Although we have tenure of the park, any waterway is considered crown land. So even though that waterway is within the park, the boundaries of the park is technically the waterway. So the fact that the boardwalk goes over the waterway means that we need to apply for tenure over that waterway. And they say that takes 18 to 24 months. So I'm trying to work with our consultants on making some concessions. So far, it's not been very promising, but I might be coming back to council next meeting to get a council resolution to apply for this tenure. I'm really hoping not to have to do that, because I think we already have tenure for 3 lots that are neighboring it, but yeah, that's the latest. I thought I'd just mention that.
See, that could be bookmarked from your meeting right there.
That could definitely be,
That's.
like if it's 2 years to go through the process and then tell us 2 more 18 months.
Yeah, luckily they did say they will concurrently process the works approval. So basically it takes 2 years for them to look at the file, and then they look at it and tell you what you need. And
So, I mean, you were sitting here for the BCM minister's conversation. So if in your work, you said you might be coming back to council to look at an application, perhaps process it for the next couple of weeks too. If it seems appropriate that this is a place for some advocacy for us to either speed the process or, whatever. Let's have that conversation at our next meeting.
in fact, I did mention to our environmental consultants that very thing. I said, our council, this is obviously a huge project for our community, and it's the fact that in 2 years, I mean, we're technically doing work on that, and we don't have tenure to do that. So the tenure would be to repair and maintain trails to the park, which we're doing. So technically what we're doing is unapproved. And if we didn't do any of that maintenance, that would be to the point that we have to close those trails in the park, which would be a huge loss to the community. And so basically I said to our consultants, look, our council, I'm sure, would advocate at the political level to get the processing done. So I've raised that with our consultants. They're in the conversations now, but I'm happy to continue that.
Consider it we have to make a decision by next meeting, pretty much, if we're gonna try to ask for that meeting with the minister. So
And
think about that between now and the 30th.
sure. And that would be just a formal recommendation to council that we would like this.
I don't think it have to be a formal recommendation, just, if, like you said, you're going through the process and then you might come back for a tenure application, carry on with your consultant, go through the process. If some advocacy for council, for the province to say, this tenure application process, in this case in general, but in this case needs to be shortened so that we can carry on, or we already have tenure, therefore we should have the ability, we can continue doing these works, or, so we need to refine it, but.
You may recall, we did put a submission, we just submitted it directly to UBCM in 2022. Whereas municipal use of crown land is often essential for the provision of important municipal services, and whereas the lengthy application process for nominal rent tenures and sponsored crown grants impact municipality ability to provide these services. Therefore, be it resolved that UBCM requests that the province increase funding to reduce application wait times and improve the application process for sponsored crown grants and nominal rent tenures. The resolution committee said that they supported that resolution. And it was endorsed by the minister, by the UBCM membership, but we have not yet heard back from the province. We haven't received the province's response. So we could take that same, basically that same language and use it for the ask, especially since we have not heard response to that resolution. I can check the reso book, but I don't think we've received.
Let's follow up. I know the resolution came out of a lot of flood mitigation work in terms of ditching, culverting, and diking. And that it took so long to get those 10-year definitions through. But it's just as related to this, obviously, so.
And I'll know there's another application that I believe is still pending, is that sign, the Pemberton, welcome to Pemberton sign. That's been probably almost 3 now, I feel like.
So what history is that today?
What? It's Ministry of Forests, actually.
Okay, so let's not make a decision on it now. Let's come back to this in case you have any new information from May 30th, but let's consider.
May 23rd.
See, May
I
30th.
thought it was May 30th.
You said May 30th.
But I suggested that we have at the end of the committee, the whole meeting on May 23rd, we have a short touch base,
Gotcha.
in case anybody had anything
Right.
more, to give us a little bit more time to
Right.
prepare the.
So on May 23rd, we're gonna have the cow we didn't have today, and at the end of that
We'll
meeting.
we'll just save some time at the very end to have a touch base in case there's anything more.
So between now and then, if you have any fresh thoughts in terms of who to advocate for, but I think that's actually a good conversation for us to have.
I'm sure we're not the only community that is dealing with this. In fact, talking to our consultants who do a lot of local work, the result will be and is unpermitted works proceeding.
Yeah.
Because there's some projects that have waited 5-6 years because of these things, so.
Yeah.
You're trying to follow the right procedures, you're trying to make sure that you're documenting and permitting, but when you don't get any answer, you're stuck in making a decision, do we repair something that's in desperate need of repair without the appropriate permits, or do we wait and either cause someone potential harm or close a valuable community? So.
Okay.
Sorry, did anyone have any questions on the progress chart?
Like, just one question, with the amenity building, would that look like we may get the services in this year?
That's the goal, that's the goal we've set. Possibly also some parking lot grading. Now, I'm not sure how much council is up to date with the plans for that. But in the RFP, it would have said, we did actually separate the amenity building, which would be the sort of snack bar, public bathrooms, very nice focal point of the park, from the maintenance and storage building. These were 2 components of the design that we were always assuming would be just one building, but really when we got into how much space we need for our own storage, as well as all the community groups that we want to offer storage space to, we realized that there's no need to make that a big sort of, I guess, for lack of a better term, fancy amenity building. And also just for the flow of the design and where we want people to be. We didn't really want that maintenance to be so close to this public, amenities. So we've separated out those 2. It'd be the same architectural design, but I'm hopeful, and maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but I'm hopeful that we can actually hammer out a design of that storage building a lot quicker than the amenity building, and we could potentially start working on that this year. I'm not going to make any promises, but that's something that I'm going to push for, because we need somewhere to keep our tractors.
Would that be on the same site?
It would be on the Dendoff Park, but not on the same location.
Amenity building.
So I did include a figure, actually figure 3 in this report. It might be hard to see if it just got black and white, but if you look on the southwest corner of field 1 is where we're proposing a sort of maintenance building and storage facility, whereas the amenity building itself will be above the baseball diamond and to the east of field 2.
Good, thank you.
I think that's north is up on this, I hope. Assuming that it's north is up, that's what I'm, yeah.
Through the mayor, I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm curious. The water main break, was that just aging infrastructure or was that, because it wasn't particularly cold then, was it? So,
The infrastructure itself. Let's say, well, I should start by saying that there's currently an insurance investigation on this, so I don't know how much detail I should provide, but what I can say is that. The material that was used should last longer than what it is. What caused the break that we've seen as well in other instances is when there's a rock against that pipe. Pipe naturally move, there's a water hammer, especially a high pressure line like this one. And so over time that rock can sort of drive itself into the pipe. So it's not necessarily the age of the infrastructure, but perhaps other factors that might be consistent or not throughout the construction of that water main, if that makes sense.
Nope.
Okay. So,
Yeah, sorry to conclude my report. There's no communications or legal considerations. It's really just an update to council. And so I recommend that you receive my report.
Okay, that much.
strong recommendation here. Want to back off a little bit. Thank you for the report. Any further questions? No. Thank you. Motion received. Got it, second by Councillor Helmer. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. June. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Definitely a tighter format on the quarterly report. Come on, an invitation. We're on 13.1. Mr. Sikora is going to take us through the 5-year financial plan bylaws.
Great, and I will ask Ms. Fraser if they'll help this evening to keep it quick where we can. A lot of procedure today for a lot of financial bylaw information that we've been chatting about for the last 5 or so months. There shouldn't be any surprises here today. I did provide for everyone a sneak peek at the pie chart. There's some appetite to enjoy the pie charts. This will be included in the brochure and the information that goes out to the public with their upcoming tax notices. So let's go at the end of the month, the tax notices, and we try to provide some information based on community feedback and a little bit of a breakdown of what makes up taxes, how it's collected, and there's often a lot of interest around this here split that highlights collection for other governments and collection through Village of Pemberton, denoted by the municipal tax and others. So we see a bit of a change this year. Village of Pemberton's share of the pie went down by 3%, and there were some offsets for collection for others. Again, preview today, but everyone will see that with their tax notices as a little brochure in a few weeks. Great. So I did provide a report to council today. That highlights that today we're going to go through the first, second, and third readings of the 2023 through 2027 5-year financial plan bylaw number 943, 2023. The 2023 annual tax rates bylaw number 944, 2023. The water regulation protection and rates bylaw number 232, 1989, amendment bylaw number 945, 2023. And the sanitary sewer systems rates, rents, and charges bylaw number 946, 2023. So in the report, I provided those appendices. The 5-year plan was presented to council on the 18th, and out of that committee of the whole, there was a discussion and recommendation to proceed with the 8% tax rate increase for the 2023 fiscal year. That's reflected in the 5-year plan, along with the increase in to sewer reserve by an additional $40,000. And subsequently, there's a ratified recommendation of, or there was going to be a ratified recommendation of the committee of the whole. However, thank you, that was all clarified and we've correctly captured that, and that is accurately reflected in the 5-year plan. Additionally, when it comes to the 5-year plan, I would highlight again, we've discussed and reviewed everything incorporated there. The water rates bylaw, which would be the bylaw number 945. We have reflected the Little Log Water Agreement and the updated rates that will impact industrial users. We'll be accompanying that rate increase with just a letter informing everyone of how we've renegotiated and updated the costs. They've been stable over the last number of years. The sewer rates bylaw will have a update as discussed of an additional $40,000 committed to reserves. So procedurally, should we be going through each of the individual bylaws and discussing or requesting questions, or shall I go into this?
Yeah, let's do, we'll go one at a time. If you have questions, then we'll make the resolutions one at a time. So 15.1A is the 5-year financial plan. Bylaw number 943. You have more to present on, or let's go for questions?
I did provide an appendix with some detail. I think perhaps as it was pretty straightforward and something that would have been discussed with council. I might open the floor to questions. I would highlight that perhaps the one piece of information that this council may not have seen is the permissive tax exemptions. There's been no changes to that or to the policy since previous council reviewed that. That would cover the municipal land and buildings, St. David's, Pemberton Child Care Society, the Lions Society, Stewardship Pemberton, Pemberton Search and Rescue, the Pemberton Legion, with a total or a total impact of $9,683.44. That would be probably the only thing I haven't presented or discussed with council over the previous budget sessions. Perhaps with that, I'll open the floor to questions.
Questions?
Happy to make a motion.
Councillor Helmer making the motion that we give first, second, third reading to financial plan bylaw number 943, 2023. Seconded by Councillor Craddock. Further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. 2023 annual tax rates bylaw number 944.
There's nothing to present there. I just provided a schedule with the calculated general municipal, the regional district, and Sea Sky Regional Hospital District rates.
Go ahead.
Move the recommendation.
Second, Councillor Helmer. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Water regulation connections bylaw number 232, amendment bylaw 945. Any questions on that or comments? Somebody like to move for second and third reading? Councillor Helmer, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the last one is in the sanitary sewer system rates, rents and charges bylaw number 946. Any comment or questions?
I would just highlight that perhaps the only note or change to what may have been seen previously is just the this bylaw would repeal in 0.5 the bylaws before it as well. Procedural, as I understand it from our experts in the corporate services team. And I've reflected in 2023 schedule a distribution across all the classes of that $40,000 increase.
Thank you. Somebody like to move for a second and third reading? Councillor Helmer, second by Councillor Nightingale. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Spara.
Thank you very much.
I love it. You can smile. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor's report. I didn't have much and most of it's come out through the course of the day, so nothing further from me. Many council reports. No, well, it's gotta be a record. If you didn't say anything, don't break it. You just slow. Go ahead, Councilor Langen.
Just want to say thank you for the opportunity to go to the, let me get this right. UBCLM, which, you know, the ALM, that's the one. Anyways, it was great. A couple of the takeaways from it were, for me, there was a good discussion around code of conduct, which was kind of timely since that had come up here. And just really acknowledging the importance of relationships, and that's why the code of conduct is so important, and the opportunity for healthy debate, and how that is so much a part of the democratic process. And that was said pretty clearly throughout that workshop. And the importance of challenging the status quo in the times that we're in right now. And healthy debate is required for that. So that was really good to hear. Also, we had a little bit of a talk about healthy elections and the election process. And for me, that was really interesting because I've only gone through that process once, and maybe only once. And so there was talks around social media and the use of social media, and how it's really important to just not just through an election process, but once you're in council, to be very aware of how powerful social media can be, positively and negatively, and to just be always mindful of that in our decision making. And one of the things I really appreciated about being there was that not only do you get to talk to people from all these other municipalities, big and small, but I had a great chat with Mr. Lidstone and people like that, you know, and I really appreciated him at our onboarding. And I had to introduce myself because I appreciate so much his daughter, who does Climate Caucus. So we had this great conversation, and he just, he's quite an inspiring guy. So you get to meet all these different people. So it's a wonderful opportunity, not only just to meet councillors, but other people involved in the democratic process. So thank you for that.
Wait till you go to UBCM,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
meeting people.
Wow.
Well, it's that time is for the whole province, so it's just that much
Right.
more of that interaction.
His comment that really stuck with me, he just got back from 2 weeks in Patagonia, in Chile, hiking. And he said, you know, the stuff they're doing down there, because they have to, out of necessity, because of what they're seeing right before their very eyes in terms of climate, he said it's just mind blowing. And anyways, it was very engaging. Thank you for the opportunity.
That was, all I wanted to say is also thank you very much for the opportunity to go around there. It was very helpful, and for the sake of keeping things brief. For Councilman, that's pretty much everything that I was going to say. So take what she said times two.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. Anybody else? I'm good. Okay, we're on to correspondence for action. We have one from Diane Rostrom. I said that right, regarding kitchen table official community plan discussion and the proposed NUCMA rezoning application. I gave a very brief response to this, and we'd like to refer this to staff for a more complete response. Or is there any other thing?
I think you dealt with it adequately.
To not refer to staff?
I guess we could still refer to staff.
Sure, I just can add a little detail in terms of the process. And
And the committee of the whole now, scheduled for rescheduled.
to let them know about the, yeah, it's good to go, yeah. Okay, so a motion to refer to staff for response and include an update in terms of the committee of the whole workshop. Moved by Councillor Helmer, second by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Two correspondence for information. Would anybody like to pull anything out, or with file, move the file receipt? Councillor Helmer, receive file. Seconder, Councillor Ramsden. Any opposed? Motion carries. Decision on late business. No late business, no motion. Question period. The regular council meeting is now open for questions from the public. Please be reminded that only questions directly related to items discussed during this meeting are permitted. If any members of the public attending via Zoom webinar wish to ask a question, please click on the raise hand feature in the webinar controls, and this will notify staff that you'd like to ask a question. As a reminder, this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded and will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Any questions from attendees? None? Okay, we could go on camera then. Councillor Helmer, second by Councillor Ramsden. Any opposed? She carries. The reset. Reopen the regular business meeting, and look for a motion to adjourn.
Hang on.
Councillor Rodman.
Hang on, the meeting was locked, so go on.
Oh, you open a regular business meeting, look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Ramsden, second by Councillor Helmer, any opposed? Adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good day.